You ask me the questions that you're supposed to ask.
All right. This is Debby Beece speaking with Eleanor McGinigle at Travis Place on July 11, 2012 for the Hastings Historical Society Oral History Project. Hi, Eleanor.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, Eleanor. It's so nice to meet you.
Same here.
You have been in this town for how long?
91 years.
91 years. That's amazing. Tell me about that. What's it been like for you?
Well, I enjoyed it because it's a small community, and everybody it was like a family. Wherever you grew up, the neighbors and everybody and the children, being that we had one school, we all went to school together. Now, I went to school with kids my age, from kindergarten to high school. We all went through school together, even though we took different subjects maybe, but we were still all together. And that's how it was where we lived. You knew your neighbors well, and if you were sick, if your parents were sick, or your mother and your father was working, a neighbor would cook a dinner for you, or the kids would come home from school and go home, change clothes, and go to the neighbors. She'd give them a snack. We were all able to go out and play because there was no danger. You could play in the front of the house, the back of the house.
Were you here on Travis Place all these 91
No,
years?
I wasn't. I lived on Warburton Avenue as a small child, and then in 1929, we moved to 17 Washington Avenue. It was a new house that was built on Lower Washington, right on there, almost near the top. They call it Lower Washington. And about 1929, and I grew up there until I got married. And it was the same thing. There was two big apartment buildings on the corner of Southside Avenue. The Seltzer flat and the Sigarisky's flat. And this was it. When you grew up, there was no such thing as a babysitter.
Right.
Your neighbors took care of you. If your mother had to go, some of them went to work, and the neighbor mother would, that's why you consider them almost a mother. And the respect that you had for your elders was very important. This is what they taught us, respect, which you don't see too much today. Yeah. And you never called any older woman or person, regardless, by their first name. It was always...
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss McGinigle.
But I mean, today it's different, but as we grew up, like we were very close friends, you still call, if you went to the girl's house, and you saw the mother, as we were teenagers, we used to cut it down to, we used to use the last, like say...
Miss B or something.
Yeah, and like my mother, if they came, they would say, "Hi, Mrs. I,"
So how has that area changed since you lived there?
Well, since I lived there, where I lived, they changed that. See, the section I lived, from this bridge over, the bridge...
The bridge, the Warburton Bridge?
The hill up here, always considered that the low class. They always thought of that, because they were all factory workers.
And what was that called? What part of town was that called? Was there a name for it?
No, they just, the other side of the bridge, or, But we didn't care, because we figured we all grew up like they did, and but they were a little snobbish, where we weren't snobbish as the kids. And we got along. In school, we got along with a lot of the kids, regardless where you came from, Uniontown, or if you came from the Mount Hope territory up there, or the Hill, as they call it.
Do you feel that way now also? Did you sense that now?
No. Today, all the kids mingle, regardless what part of town you come from. Because now, that part of town where we lived, they said, oh, they live over in the village. They call us the village kids,
Oh, okay.
And, but now, in those apartments that are down on Lower Washington Avenue, there's people that move in now. Of course, they took those apartments and they modernized them to a certain extent. And now that you go there, there's lawyers, there's architects.
Yeah, the beautiful river views too.
And they just leave the house and walk there at the train station.
Yeah.
So there's no more of this, character. Well, you're from the village and you're from the manor, or you're from,
Right. Now, do you have old pictures of anything that you could share?
Well, I did have some, and I gave some, I think, to Muriel. And I'm getting stuff together for her from the VFW and the auxiliary. She wants to do something on them.
Yeah.
So.
Tell me about the kinds of things you've done over the past 91 years in Hastings.
Oh, well.
You've had a lot of different jobs and volunteer things that are all very interesting.
All right. I was very active in school and sports and stuff like that. But after that, during the war, I happened to get a job in the Anaconda doing war. Well, it was in the 1940. And I worked in the lab.
And how old were you at this point?
I was about 20. And I worked in the lab. My brother worked there. He was a foreman. And I got because the men were starting to go to the service, so they were hiring women. And so I got a job and there, and I got it in the lab in the cable test department, and which was everything we worked on was for the war.
You were making munitions?
We did the cables.
Okay.
And the telephone wire, and then I worked on something. We worked with the Navy inspectors, Army inspectors, and
That's all right, just keep going. I'm just checking to make sure this is... Okay.
And I worked on a piece of cable that the Navy inspector came, and he watched you faithfully doing this job, because usually you did the job and you hand him your report. And but every scrap we had to do it on a certain piece of paper, and any scraps as you work and you're tearing this piece of cable, and then you give him the report, and he took the scraps, folded it up, and took it with him. And I figured, why is he doing that? We always threw that in the garbage. Then we found out later that was radar they were doing that, working on. So there's something special, a secret, until it was really what it was supposed to be. They wouldn't tell us.
This is during World War I?
No, World War II.
Oh, okay.
I was born right after World War. I was born 1920.
Oh, okay. And you were an air warden at some point?
Yes. Oh, yes. My father and I both were. I'm from Washington area in Warburton. To the bridge,
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking World War I.
That's okay. And there'd be a siren, and we'd go out and make sure all the shades, if there was a light shown, we would have to ring the doorbell or go upstairs.
Did you have training for that?
No, but they more or less they tell you what to do and what not to do. And
did you get a badge?
Yeah, we had a badge. I don't know what I ever did with it, but my father had a badge, I had a badge, and So then, working with that, they formed a union, and I became secretary to the union.
And now what year is this?
In 1941, in the Anaconda. And I worked until about 1944.
And what did you do as officer at the labor union?
Well, I went to all the meetings. I met with with the company executives whenever we were doing a contract, or if there was a grievance.
So at this point, you weren't in the lab?
I was still in the lab.
Oh, you're still in the lab. Okay.
But I did that also was part of. We got excused, like when the visitors came, they would ask the officers of the union to meet, and we would meet with the different visitors, like they came from Italy, from Russia, whatever, and they would take a tour of the plant, because we won 2 Navy E thing for the work that we done for the Navy.
What does that mean?
Well, excellent work that we did, and we did a lot of it, and it was, sent.
Why didn't you start back with the labor union?
Okay.
Taking that position while you were at Anaconda in the lab, and what you did there.
Okay. I worked in the lab, and call it the cable test department, and also I was elected to the office of secretary to the union, and I kept, both it wasn't a separate job. They, just came that when there was a meeting or something came up, they would call me, and I'd go to all the meetings that they had. If it was a grievance or a regular meeting, I was always there to attend.
Now, did anything of significance happen with regard to the labor union? Anything you remember in particular?
Well, in the beginning it was fine because everybody joined, and there was a lot of going on. More women were being, getting a job as the boys left for the service. And then, but later on, a few years later, then they had a strike at one time, but it didn't last long. We went back to work.
And this was in the 40s?
Yes. And then there was another one. After I left, there was another one, but I wasn't there at that time.
And the strike was about what? Wages?
Wages and...
And what percentage of women were there at that point, or when you were there?
Oh, I would say almost 85 to 90%.
And now that was a complete change.
Yeah, because
for them,
they
right?
hired more people because they had more big contracts, from the Army, from the Navy, and
Was it a patriotic feeling?
Oh yes, very, very much so. And then when one of the women from the administration, she started a newspaper. For us, from all the departments, if you had a little bit news, and they would mail it to the fellows in the service.
Oh, wonderful.
And you would do that. So if somebody was going away into the service, they would put that. So the fellow that worked with him there would say, oh, he's also in the service. And then when they came home on leave, they would come to the thing, and they would ask for certain people, because some of the girls wrote them little notes. They kept it up. They gave us a list of people, and you sent them the thing. The company paid for it, but you wrote little notes and stuff. And so when they come back, they wanted to meet you. But some of them knew who they were because you already were working in that department. But a lot of them, as they left, they hired a woman in their place.
Mm-hmm. What kind of other activities in Hastings during the war did you do? What was the town like then? What was the feeling?
The feeling in the town was really a home-style time. We had a lot of mom-and-pop stores. And the neighbors were all very friendly, very close to one another. It was like one big family living in Hastings because you knew almost everybody. No matter if you went for it, like other people walked. There weren't that many cars at that time. You could walk. And everybody took an after-dinner stroll, and you'd walk. And people they didn't have air conditioning. They had screens and they used to take a chair. If there wasn't a front porch, they would bring a chair and sit out in the front. And as you went by, you'd see everybody, you say hello, you stop to talk. And it was just one big happy stroll. And you didn't have to be afraid, to walk in the evening. But a lot of us, they had a whistle in town that the anaconda used to blow for work. There was one that blew 10 minutes to 8 and one at 8 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yeah, and then 9 o'clock at night it used to blow. And that was everybody off the streets,
Oh.
If you went, you say, I'm going to the library tonight. Well, you better be home by 9 o'clock. And the library closed.
And that was because why?
I don't know, they just kept you off the streets.
Was it dark? Was it blackout?
Well, it was dark, but...
were people not supposed to have lights on?
Well, everybody went to sleep early. They got up early and went to work early. Yeah. Remember, there was a lot of people in the village here. I'm going to talk about the village more than the manor. Because they took the train, or,
Sure.
Or if they had a car, maybe they would drive if they worked in White Plains or Yonkers. But a lot of them people in the village didn't have cars. Now, I know there were men that worked up at the cemetery, grave diggers at that time. No machines, they dug. And they used to leave early in the morning. So the butcher shop, those little mom and pop store, the butcher shop, there was one on, there was two of them on the lower Washington Avenue, Mandrick's, and there was we call it the Russian butcher, just so you knew which store you were talking about. Now, they used to open up like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
Because people used to come in and get early morning like milk or whatever, and they used to pack a lunch for their husbands. And these men used to leave and walk. Now, remember, walking from the bottom from Washington Avenue all the way up to Mount Hope Cemetery.
wow. That's a big hill.
That's all uphill. And, and they worked digging all day long and then walked back home. So, by 9 o'clock, most of them were all in bed. Mm-hmm.
Now, I read in the Enterprise old issues that there was a certain amount of concern and tension during World War II with the munition plants. One, in terms of safety and spies and espionage, and that there was concern because there were so many immigrants in the area that they might be stealing secrets or things like this. Was that something that you dealt with or were aware of?
No, wasn't aware of that, because most of the people that I knew, they seemed like real honest, good to goodness people. Even though I worked in a workplace, no one ever questioned me, say, what are you doing and what's this and what's that. And what we used to do, we worked in Anaconda, we used to, it was like if we did a cable and that was okay, because we used to take samples from that and test it to see if it met up with all the things it was supposed to be.
Right.
And then it was okay, then we goes to the shipping department. We used to write our names and say, hi, because on the outside would say Anaconda, So, and it'd be strange, a lot of the Navy fellas and stuff, when they saw that was like home to them,
nice.
Just to see the name Anaconda, because they worked there, or they knew their family, because in the Anaconda during the wartime, there was mother, father, sons, and brothers and sisters that worked. You took place of them.
So did you take the place of someone?
Well, I worked in my brother's department, then he finally went into the Marines.
Ah.
But I didn't take I worked in that lab, because he was a foreman. I was just...
But where did he go in the Marines?
He went to the Marines. He was overseas. It was in a terrible place, but he used to... He had a very bad back from it. He was in the hospital, and he said, when I laid there, and hear these 17 and 18-year-olds crying out for their mothers.
Oh, God.
That really bad. He said, that made me more sick than the pain I had on my back,
Yeah.
But, of course, we knew he was in the South Pacific, but
yeah,
we didn't. And, when they come back, they don't talk about it.
Uh-huh.
Even though, you'll ask them a lot of questions, they just wouldn't say too much. They don't do. But you get the bunch of the veterans now, today, or at that time, if we had a dance or a thing later on in the morning, we're still there 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning sitting around talking. Then they may, between the guys, they will say, oh, remember this, when we were here, or we did this and that. They would talk a little bit about it. But if you question them, until this day, there's a lot of this, the ones from VFW here in Hastings, they don't tell you anything.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit about the VFW, but before I do, can I just ask you a quick question? Now, did you work in the Victory Gardens? Did you have a Victory Garden?
Well, we had our own garden.
Oh, okay, at your own place. Okay. And now, tell me about your work with the VFW and what you do there.
Well, in order to join the VFW Auxiliary, which is Beatrice Gorman Auxiliary, which I should first tell you about the VFW. VFW was named James Daly, it's Post 200, and it's the oldest post in Westchester County. And it was named after James Daly. He lived in Uniontown, and he was killed in the war. He was the first one to be, this is World War I. And he was killed, and they named him.
Do you know how the details of that?
I don't. We don't have too much.
And Beatrice Gorman was also killed in World War I.
She was an Army nurse, and so then she came from Uniontown also.
Oh, she did.
And it's very strange that I said that the post and the auxiliary was named after two people that they're from Uniontown. Now, when we joined, when I joined in the 50s. And there was people that joined when it first started. They just joined, but they didn't know that because we went back in the history, because we're always supposed to keep our paraphernalia, and you pass it on from one person to
You have an archive?
And we have a national office out in Kansas, and they're the ones who give us the rules and the regulations. And but we can't find anything
On Beatrice or on James Daly?
But James Daly, I think they got something. Someone found something in the attic on him and gave it to the Post. But nobody, because I had questioned a Gorman that I knew. He ran a business in Hastings, an oil business, home oil delivery. And I asked him, because there was a couple of Gorman families up in Uniontown. And when I asked him, what do you have anything about this Peter? He said, I don't know. I don't have anything about her, and I don't know too much about her at all. And he says there's not enough of Gormans up here that's left that know, because the younger ones, after all, if you don't carry that, or you don't talk about it through the family, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
So we're still at loss. But I know we found out that she had, she was buried up in St. Joseph. There's a monument there. I don't know if it's a body or if they just put a stone. So,
Yeah.
Muriel.
Yeah, she knows that.
She knows that because she got in touch with me because I said to her, we'll have to go to the cemetery, take a picture, and maybe there's some information. I don't remember. We went up there to decorate it, because we had a few people from the girls that were buried there, and just before Memorial Day, we used to go put flags. And I said, we saw the Beatrice Gorman thing, but I never really took any information off the stone, which we were going to do because the Bureau said she would look into that.
So after the war ended, did you stayed at Anaconda?
No, I got married in 1945 and I wasn't working.
And was your husband in the war?
No.
Your fiancé?
He worked in the Anaconda, and he was a big shot in the Union. He became the chief investigator and whatnot for the CIO. And if there was any problems, they used to call him, and he would go to the department and see if he could straighten it all out.
And there was a little blurb in the Enterprise about an older version of, many years ago, that said people stopped eating pork during World War II.
That I remember.
Because it was, too Germanic. And that there was a anti-German sentiment in town. Do you recall that?
No, I don't recall that at all.
Okay, good.
That might have been one little spot in town where they had, because there was things up at, like the apartment house over here on Villard Avenue.
Yes. The Spite House.
The Spite House. And that was because this contractor, he wanted to build something up the hill here. And they were all against him. Mm-hmm. So for that, he bought that property, built that house, and he called it the Spite House. Because then they didn't want that apartment house.
Right, it interfered with some river views, too.
Yeah, and he did it, that's why they call it the Spite House.
That's right, yeah.
So, because that man, I thought they should run everything in this village.
So how did life change for you after the war in town? After the Second World War ended?
Well, everybody tried to just, there was a lot of it was in a way sad for a while because a lot of the boys I went to school with and graduated in 1939 went right into the war. Uh-huh. And a lot of them didn't come back.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of your neighbors didn't come back.
Do you remember any of their names?
Oh,
boys that didn't
I
come
know
back?
them all that are listed on that monument.
At the library?
And the ones even the one that lived up the hill, I went to school with,
And was it well known what had happened to them, how they died?
Well,
or where?
Yeah, well, some of them, most of them were overseas that died, But yeah, at that time, they didn't tell you too much. Even the government didn't tell you. Even when you were missing, you just knew they were missing, but you didn't know where. Mm-hmm. That's not like today. You more or less know because there's photographers all over the place and, TV and everything else. That you can't hide anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was tragic when you, oh my God, they used to hang this, they used to hang at your window, when you had a son in service.
Yes.
And if he died, they had a star, and you knew who was a Gold Star mother and who was, And sometimes when you find that your neighbor lost a son and your son is fine, you didn't, you felt it was more heartbreaking because you know how that person feels, And for a while there, you figured, oh, isn't it a shame because there was a group of us. I went to school, and there was a group of us girls that went to. We were great friends. But out of that group, there's always one girl that you're more close to, and I had that. That happened with, and each one of us used to. We all went to school together. We lived nearby each other.
You went to the Farragut School?
Went to. We went, but at that time was just there was no hillside school. It was just Farragut and the high school, and. When we were, I think, sophomores, we decided to form a club. You know how kids do that?
Sure.
And there was 10 of us, and we named it Club 10 with the X as 10. Club X. And everybody said, what does Club X mean? That's just 10 of us. And we used to meet once a week at home. And a lot of them had little clubs like this, 2 or 3 girls. And every week we have a meeting at somebody's house. And of course it was either chocolate milk or, nothing like today where you have a meeting at home, you're serving, we would get Ritz crackers with peanut butter or jelly or something. And we kept this up. We stuck together even when we graduated, and one went here and one went there. We all kept in touch.
Oh, wonderful.
And we got married, and we still had Club 10.
How great.
And till this day, and I know, because we got married, we went to each other's wedding, we were in each other's weddings. The kids, they had kids. We went to their Christian communion confirmation, their baby showers, and their everything,
Oh, how wonderful.
And in this day, there's only, let's say, 4 of us left. Me, and there's Helen Raycotts, Betty, and one girl, Catherine Connick, she lives in Florida, and Bergie. There's only 4 of us really left. But we were so close, and we all had kids more or less the same time.
Now, did Club 10 all work with you in Anaconda? Did all the women go to the war effort?
No, one worked here, one worked in the city as secretary. One girl, Helen Raycotts, she's still alive, and she worked in the city for a while with different companies as a secretary. And then when Donald Trump started, when his father turned the business over to him, she was his secretary.
Oh, my.
And
she must have stories.
Yes, and she used to tell us that, I worked for Trump, and nobody knew who Trump was. And she didn't think too much of him. At that time, she said we had an office, 1 desk, 2 chairs, and a cabinet. And she said, little by little, he grew and he grew and she grew with him. And, she said up until she left, which was only a few years ago, and the reason why she left, on her way home from work in the city, going to the train, someone bumped into her, knocked her down, and she fell. Oh. And she had quite a few bruises and whatnot, so then she never went back to work. But he was very, very good to her. He'd come into her every morning, go over to her desk and say, hello, how are you? Because they had different departments. Then she went to the legal department. But whenever he had something big that he wanted, the secretary, he'd call her over to dictate to her.
Nice. Well, let's get back to you.
Okay. Well, that's, this is, we didn't all, we all worked in different...
Right.
But we all came home and we have a meeting once a week. We still do.
So after the war, you got married.
Mm-hmm.
And you joined the VFW Women's Auxiliary then?
I joined it in 1951.
50.
I had my daughter in 47, and then I worked where did I work before I got married? I can't remember.
Did you miss working during the war effort?
No, because by this time a lot of them were coming back, and they got their jobs back.
So you were happy to leave?
I was happy to leave, And then I had my daughter in 1947, and then 3 years later I had my son. So when he was going back to school, when he was going to start school, I lived in my mother's house. I had an apartment upstairs, and she was...
And was this on Washington?
No, this was Warburton Avenue.
Oh, Warburton. And did I ask you, do you have pictures of any of these things? The old pictures of the old parts of town that you used to live in?
Yeah, no, I did have some. I know what I did with them. I have to go look.
Okay. I think I asked you that, right? Probably.
I have, pictures packed in boxes. And,
they'd be great to see.
And so anyway, then my mother... I got a job. A friend of mine said, the Reader's Digest is looking just for the holiday thing from September to...
That's in Chappaqua?
Yeah. They're looking for people there to work because that's their heaviest time, because everybody used to give Reader's Digest as a gift. Mm-hmm. So she said, So I asked my mother. She said, sure, you can go, because the bus picked him up almost right in front of the house, and came back. So she, of course... I lived upstairs, my mother lived downstairs, and my children never walked past my mother's door because I always had to stop at Grandma's because she had all the good...
The treats.
Then they go upstairs. So I went to work for Reader's Digest, and it was supposed to be from September to December, and I worked 8 years there.
Wow.
And the reason why I left, I had gotten pneumonia because they started to put their stuff on. They called it UNIVAC. It was going to be computers. Mm-hmm. They took a small state like Rhode Island. And I worked with these three men doing, trying to get the state and doing this and see how it would work if they put all their states into this computer. And we had to sit in this air conditioning. It was really, really cold. I ended up with pneumonia, and I figured...
Oh, the air conditioning keep the computers from overheating?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, they really... And they didn't know too much themselves of that. Mm. This was something new. And I worked for a year with these men. And when I got I figured, my husband said, I think it's time to quit. You went there for a few months, and you're there 8 years,
Enough already.
So then I, came home, and I figured, okay, So anyway, my life still went on because I had the kids, and I got, my kids were always volunteering me at school. Whose mother do you think your mother could chaperone? These hands went up.
Oh, nice.
I said to my children, don't any other kids in class have a mother or father? It was always because my husband was a cub master, and at the First Reformed Church, they held their meetings there, and he was a cub master with Mr. Hoffman, and my son belonged to the Cub Scouts, and my daughter was in the Girl Scouts, and you had to do it, and they were always volunteering us for everything that went on.
And when did you move to Travis Place?
We moved to Travis. This was my husband's family's house.
Okay.
And after my first husband, my father-in-law died, then my mother-in-law died, and the house was left to the kids, and everybody else had a house. So we bought the kids out, and we came here, and it was about 1963.
Okay, so you've been here for
a long time.
A long time. So how do you describe Hastings now as opposed to Hastings then? So you've seen this tremendous change.
Yes, and I saw this change, which some changes were good,
What changes were good?
Oh, well, we got more parks, and like the riverfront, McEachran Park. Yes. We used to go there as kids. That's where we learned to swim, was in the Hudson River.
You swam in the Hudson?
Yeah, that was a big thing. The people
even back then when it was...
and it was dirty.
Factories were...
And it was dirty, we knew, but you just pushed it out and you swam.
You pushed what out?
The dirt that floated, you just pushed it aside and you swam, And we went to, a lot of the boys, young men, they made their own kayaks and canoes, and they used to take us. We used to go. They used to call it. There's a place they call the Guinea Gardens, and we would go across there. And
across the river to Nyack area.
Well,
and that was called the what? The Guinea Gardens.
There was a place right across.
Was that Italian?
We don't know, but it was a beautiful gardens, and it was nice. It was beautiful. But I don't know why they called it that. But anyway, and I would say, we were in a canoe, and we had a lot of dayliners that time. You went down the Hudson.
It's dangerous, yeah.
And they would give this waves, and I'm there, and I'm saying to myself, my mother would kill me.
Life jacket?
No. My mother would kill me if she knew I was going across the river on this here, and I'm swaying here in the water. Because we were all threatened, Now, you be careful when you go down that river when you're swimming. There's a lot of rocks and stuff, and stuff like that. And a lot of the mothers didn't want their kids to go. But, all the kids went on a hot, sunny day. Sure. Everybody didn't have a swimming pool, in their backyard. And the village didn't have a pool, So this is where, because now on the southern part, when you go like down further past the Irish Flats, down that way, if you went down to they call it the home.
Where are you talking about now?
The southern part of all the way down, just before the Yonkers line, the back of Graham School, there's a back there. Mm-hmm. Well, if you went down the river that way, they called it the home because the home was up there. They used to,
I see.
So the people that lived, like, say, from the Irish Flats all the way up there until maybe Warburg, they used to hang out there. And the kids from the other part of the village would go down to, we call it the Point.
The Point.
The Point. It's beyond the yacht club.
Okay.
There, down the end. And it had a nice, place there with trees. And we used to even go in the evening there. We used to bring potatoes and roast them. And we get little cans of beans. They had little cans of beans, and we would have like a little picnic.
Nice. That's sweet.
And
you would launch boats from there?
Yeah. No, and we had a lot of the fellows now. Mr. Russick was down there quite a bit. He was quite a canoeist, and his friend from Yonkers, Steve Lysak, used to canoe a lot up there. And he went to the Olympics and won in the Olympics.
No kidding.
Yes.
Is a Hastings resident?
No, but Yonkers, but he hung out here in Hastings for the Owls. And so anyway, living in Hastings at that time, as I said, was like the family. You knew everybody. But today, it's not that way. See, we lost all those mom and pop stores.
Now, when did that start to happen in your
I would
mind?
say like maybe in the 80s, in the 90s. And now, where you're walking that whole Warburton Avenue. I'll just take Warburton Avenue, for instance. You go from the bridge, and you go south. You're going south. From the corner of Washington Avenue. Even before that. Now from there, right from the bridge into Washington Avenue, it was all stores and the apartments upstairs. There's no stores there.
No, there's no stores.
Then you go from Washington Avenue, where the gas station is. Used to be a bar and an apartment house. Next to it was a diner. Then it was the bar. Then you go up a little further. There used to be a mom and pop butcher shop, but carried everything. They call it a butcher shop, but that's what it starts at. But then he has vegetables, and then he has ice cream, and the little mom and pop store. Then you go up further. There used to be another little store that now it's an apartment. There are all these now apartments.
Yeah.
Then you go up where that big building. You'll see it right across from Division Street. There's an apartment house, a little apartment house, and there's a big empty spot now. It's got a nice white fence. It was an apartment building that burned down, and they never built anything on it. There was a store and the apartment. Then next to it, at one time, that store was a barber shop and a candy store. Ice cream and candy and stuff, newspaper. And next to it was another mom and pop store. That store is there now. And now,
that store is there now?
That store there now is Antoinette's.
Oh,
cafe.
yes, okay.
And next to it is the chiropractor, and that's Antoinette's sister that owns that.
Oh, okay.
And that building was my sister owned. My sister and my brother-in-law owned that house. And then when she died, and then he died, and then my nephew, their grandson, bought that house, and he still owns that house. But that's the only two stores that really remained on that whole Warburton Avenue.
So you've seen a lot of the development too.
Yeah.
So you saw the development of, was it Pinecrest area?
Yes. Now Pinecrest, I think Dr. Parton and his wife were the first ones to move into Pinecrest, and he was black and she was white. And then Clark came in. And a lot of the blacks, but these were all the you know what I mean? They were all professionals. They were, like Clark and then Parton, Dr. Parton, he was a doctor. And they had their own group up there. They were all more or less, but it was fine. People welcomed them, because we didn't have any blacks really in the town. And because one section...
There was a diverse population of people from various countries, immigrants that came to work at the various plants on the waterfront.
That's right, because remember, we had the Anaconda, we had Zinzer, and then Yonkers had Phelps. They had the sugar plant, and you figure there was the Chevrolet up in Tarrytown. So people from Hastings, Dobbs Ferry, even Yonkers, they worked all along the waterfront. It could be in an office, but, or in the factory.
Right.
So, but today, there is not that along the waterfront. It's not what it used to be.
No, it's completely changed.
Sure,
right? All those factories are gone.
And so, that's how your village changed. Because, like, when you came over the bridge, we always said over the bridge, to this day we'll say
that over the bridge, and that has a connotation that means what to you?
Going over the bridge was going into, we call that the village, more or less, because all the stores that we had in town was still almost like a mom and pop. We had a little A&P where the laundromat is.
Oh.
That used to be an A&P at one time. And then we had a Christie Brothers where I think that the bar that's over there, Riverside or whatever.
There's a movie theater.
No, I'm coming back.
I remember the movie theater at the end of town. That was great fun.
That was great. And right next to it, where there...
Cup and Saucer.
But before that, it was Bruning's ice cream parlor. And he made his own ice cream and ices. Oh, delicious. Oh, God. And then he had candy, and then he had, in the back, he had tables where if you wanted to sit and have a sundae. Imagine getting a sundae for 15 cents, a banana split. And I mean, it was real whipped cream, and it was good ice cream because he'd give you 3 big scoops of ice cream with banana. He split that banana in half, but you got the whole banana, you know what I mean? And whipped cream, homemade whipped cream was delicious for 25 cents.
That's amazing.
Nickel for a cone, and this is all homemade ice cream. Mm-hmm. You either got it from Bruning's, if we used to, like, Dobbs Ferry had a movie house, and they used to deliver cards, posters, and to put in the store windows to advertise what was playing in the week in the theater, and you got 2 free passes. So the store owners used to give it to us, and we used to walk from Hastings to the embassy. On the way, we would stop to Bruning's and buy 10 cents worth of candy, and everything that was 3 for a penny, 5 for a penny. We had a bag, big. And we would save that money for the bus. For 10 cents, we could get a bus up and a nickel back to go to the movies. No, we saved that 10 cents.
So you would take the bus from the other side of the bridge to the movie theater?
Mm-hmm. Up to Dobbs Ferry.
Oh, to Dobbs Ferry movie theater.
Because we got free passes, so it didn't cost us.
Gotcha.
And then there used to be some for the Yonkers, Proctor's, the movie houses. There was Loewy's, there was Proctor's, there was the Strand. And that was going into Yonkers.
So did you do most of your shopping in Hastings? Mm-hmm. Everything you needed? You did your food?
You got food. You had a lot of stores to go into food. Right there on
As a young woman for a dress, where would you go?
Oh, we had a dress shop. Now, let's see, she would be where the nail place is now in Hastings. Mm-hmm. Next to the laundromat there was a dress shop. I forget her name, but she was a mayor, M-A-Y-E-R. Leonard Mayor's wife had a nice dress shop. And then on the corner where that antique place or whatever it's supposed to be on the corner.
Sure.
Used to be Readers. They had everything. They had men's felt hats, men's clothing, good shirts. Aerosmith was a big thing, and men's clothing, women's clothing, children's clothing. For years. Now, you see, when we grew up in Hastings here, there was no such thing as races of any kind. We went to school, we never cared what this kid was, if she was Jewish or German or Italian, Irish or Polish, Czechoslovak, whatever. We never asked. We were just friends, and we went through school as friends and never because we were very, like a big family. Mm-hmm. Like I could remember the calendars they had where the cup and saucer, not the cup and saucer, that Nancy Caruso had before.
Oh,
in the village.
Yeah, I know it was a sort of a stationery.
Yeah, stationery store. The calendars had it. And when the holiday would come, in their holiday, the Jewish holidays, she would say, "Come here," and she would give us some of the sweets that she made, a special thing. Mm-hmm. She didn't care what you were. You were in the store, you bought something, and she got to know, because we knew her kids played in the school band.
Did you have a sense that was not the same in other towns in Westchester?
No, because Dobbs Ferry was called Little Italy. Dobbs Ferry was called Little Italy because most of them were Italians. In Hastings, we had such a mixture. There weren't many Italian families in Hastings when I grew up. Mm-hmm. I'm Italian background. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't, but it mostly was Russian, Polish, Ukrainian. We had quite a few Germans, But when we went to school, we didn't know, because we never asked, "What are you? What do you do?" We got friends. We played on the same teams together. Mm-hmm. We were on the playground together. You shared whatever you had. If you had a pack of gum, would you like a stick? You didn't say, "Well, they're different than I am," or they speak a different language. No, because, we just grew up all together. And that's the way we were taught in school, to get along with one another, mm-hmm. regardless. Mm-hmm. And that you don't see that today.
You don't.
You don't see that.
How do you see it today?
I think a lot of the people that come into this town today, especially the ones that come from a big city, they're not as close. Because in the city, people don't know their neighbors. They could live in an apartment building and maybe see them on the elevator, but don't know anything about them or their children or anything. Mm-hmm. We're here in Hastings. You knew all about somebody because they would meet you and they would ask you a question, do you have any children, and this, that.
You were mentioning that your street here, that there are lots of new neighbors that you don't necessarily meet right away.
Right. Well, no, the ones that are here now, like across the street from me, when I came here, Mrs. Wasik owned the house. And then she passed away, and Gilda Simmons bought the house. And she came with 3 boys, young boys. Now, she's still alive, but after the husband died, and she had and the boys started to grow up, and one got married, and she finally sold the house to one of her sons, the oldest boy. He's across the street, so it's second generation right there. Right. So, and then the house in the middle there was the Hayneses. Now, Mrs. Haynes started the senior canteen in Hastings. Mm-hmm. And he was a commissioner of DPW at the time. And he just, she was there quite a long time. Then she passed away, and he was there, and then he was in the nursing home, then he passed away. And the son that lived up, I forgot what street in Hudson Street, I think. He had his son that lived in Yonkers that was married and had a little boy. He moved here and paid rent. And she taught at St. Matthew's kindergarten, the wife. But then he bought the house. He lived there. He just moved about 10 years ago, I think. He's down in Florida now. And the house on the corner was Riola. And he had that house for quite a while, and then he passed away, and the mother was there with only the one daughter that was left. The other two were married and away. One was out in Arizona, and I don't know where the other one moved to. But anyway, she finally sold that house and moved to the apartments in River Glen or whatever they call that place. And so this John bought it, and he's been there quite a while. He raised his two kids. Now the kids are out of college and on their own. And the one on that corner house, they're there, oh God, for years and years and years. And she had 5 boys. 4 of them are married, and 1 isn't, and he still lives at home, but he has like a little apartment upstairs of his own. And then the house next to it, that was sold, and Carol and Don bought that house, Batista, and she's still there. Her two daughters and her son are married. They don't live at home or nearby. I think the boy's out in Arizona. But the house in the middle, it's Bruce Jennings lived there. The Mills lived there, and this girl from the city came and she lived there. And then she sold it to this couple that came down from Irvington. She said, "Oh, I always wanted to live in Hastings," and she loved this place. And she lived here for a few years. Then she had to move because her husband got MS, and the going up and down the stairs was too much for him. So she moved, and we have this couple, I don't even know their name. They're living here now since Christmas.
So that's an example of how things
I saw her
changed.
once. She happened to be walking by with the little girl. And I said, by the way, I was out in the front porch. I said, "Oh, miss, by the way." And she said, "What?" I said, "Are you my new neighbor?" She looked, "Oh, yes." And then she introduced me to the little girl, and she has a little boy. And she said, "I travel a lot. In fact, I just come back from Texas, and I do a lot of traveling. But my husband takes the children. They go to the Lutheran nursery up in Dobbs Ferry, so he must either work at home because you see that some days the station wagon's there all day, and the other days, you know, it's going in the morning, and then he goes picks the kids up, I think, and comes home. Never. And then I asked even Danielle. I said to them, I said, did you ever? I saw them, but, you know, we never really, which was very, because we knew everybody else.
Yeah, so that's a big change.
That's a big change.
And what other changes? So the town, the stores, the shopping.
Yeah, it's a whole different.
And, of course, there's been a lot of development.
Yes.
There's a Pinecrest and then the Windsor area.
You know, wherever there was a lot of space, there is no space. Now you go down on Warburton and you're going to Pinecrest, right? Now there's a gas station there. There's homes. There's a gas station. At one time, we called it the Lyceum Club. It was a men's thing. They played baseball, basketball, and they had a little team that traveled. Next to it was the Riverview Club. It was another men's club, boys' club. And it had Riverview on it, and it was all made out of cans.
No kidding. You have a picture of that?
I think the Historical Society has a picture of that. And that was it. So then when the River Group gave up, I think they sold to the village for $1 the property, you know. So now it's like a park.
Yes.
A park, and now I know they want to make it, what they tried making the different things, the skateboard thing, that didn't go too well. I think that should be Hastings Dog Park. I really believe. And keep the dogs out of the I'm against dogs at any of the parks in Hastings.
At the Zinzer Park, dog park. Every morning there's dogs there.
You know, Reynolds Field, Zinzer Field, the waterfront. You know, people, now my son, like now he left the house, right? He's going to take the papers. He goes down by the water. He goes to Canal Cove.
Sure.
Sits on the table and reads the papers. And where I used to go to, before he became Canal Club Cove, he went to the waterfront. People would come, and this is winter time, fall, winter, whatever. They would come in the park, unleash their dog, and the dog would run all over the park, right? And he would tell one woman, he said, that dog should be on the leash. In fact, it shouldn't be in the park. She gave him a dirty look. She's not picking up after this dog.
Oh, she's not. Oh.
And there's a little playground there, too, where kids play.
Yeah.
And because when the water park, that park was open, it had a sign, no open fires, it had to be closed at dusk, no dogs allowed. All of a sudden, that sign went down and people are using it. And these people with dogs, I had a dog all my life. I grew up with a dog. I got married. He did also have a dog. And my kids grew up with a dog, and I had a dog until it passed. I had a golden retriever, and it passed away. I had it for 13 years, and I didn't get another one. But that dog, I took it for a walk. It had my own house here, but I didn't take it every place I went. When we went to when we had the flea markets, in the village, I didn't bring a dog with me on a leash because people are pushing a baby in a stroller, and these dogs are nipping, and they could bite it. And even till this day, I'm against it. They bring me dogs everywhere.
If that's a change, is that?
Yes,
change?
I don't think they belong. There's a lot of people with babies in strollers, or babies walking. They could bite them. They could, because it's, children don't know. They go and they think they're at the petting zoo,
I know.
And I think it's dangerous. And I think a lot of people don't. Now, I see them walk the aqueduct. That's fine, because I see them with the plastic bag, and I see them pick up,
Yeah.
But they should make that a dog park. Now, they made that hillside park.
Hillside Woods, yeah.
That hillside wood, people said, I don't even want to go there anymore, because they let their dogs, they meet with their dogs there, and there's more. It's fair enough that the deer are there.
That's too bad.
Now I don't know what to do with that part. They could have benches on the top, and down there, there's, the lower part, the dogs could all meet and have a great time by themselves.
Right. Now, you're still involved with the VFW?
I've been president for the past 23 years because there's only a few of us old-timers left.
Yeah, and no new members coming in?
No, we don't have any new members.
And why do you think that is?
Because today, these women have young children, or they're working. And, they come home from work, they don't want to go out to a meeting. They got the kids, or they got to prepare for the next day because they got to go to work.
Because you've seen tremendous change in the role of
And not
women.
only in the VFW, I belong to the Hastings Mothers Club. Now we're going to be...
Now, what is that club?
It's a club it's going to be 100 years old in 2 years from now.
The Hastings Mothers Club.
And it was formed way back then. They have old pictures of that. I think the society has it. The Historical Society has it. But the women, like it was the mayor's wife, and all these women. Because you remember, years ago, the women didn't work, and they were involved in the PTA. They were involved in a lot of things because they were home.
Right.
I could remember coming home from school, and Mom, and she was right there.
Yeah.
It wasn't that, like today, the kids come home, they either make their own snack or they have money and they go to the pizza place and get a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
They're wandering the village. They don't go right home. You had gone home and you changed your clothes, you went out and you played. Not today.
No.
It's a whole different story.
Yeah.
You didn't see any kid. Even when I was in high school, a lot of kids did babysitting after school. They took, because that's when the babysitting started. Or some girls used to go and they used to call it pot wrestling. After school, they went to, say to your house. You hired her, and she would come and help you prepare supper, and she would do the dishes after.
Mother's helpers.
Yeah, mother's helpers. They used to call it pot wrestling back then. Oh, what do you do?
Pot wrestling?
Pot, P-O-T, wrestling.
Pot wrestling.
Yeah. Where do you get a job? I'm pot wrestling, and I worked for Mr. So-and-so. They made some money for themselves, and some of them made it because their families needed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And But see, today, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
These mothers are working. So this Mothers Club started, and it was great because the mother, then to these mothers, they had children, and most of the daughters, when they got married, they joined. So it went like, down the line. But today...
And what does the club do?
They're philanthropic. Now they give out they help anybody who needs help. And like we give 2 scholarships a year at the school here.
At Hastings School? Scholarships for college?
College. Every June.
And you put on fundraisers? How do you raise the money?
We do fundraisers. Well, we used to have penny socials. That was a big thing at one time. And the money we would get for that we would put. But anytime somebody was in need of something, like now we give, when we go to a meeting, we ask you when you come to bring something for Bill's Pantry downstairs in the youth, I still call it the youth center.
Yeah, because now it's the community center.
Yeah, we all old timers call it the youth center.
Yeah.
New people say, the village community center, And we bring in cereals or canned goods, and then we give it we leave it at the office there, and they bring it down to Bill the next day. To whatever happens. Now we do things for Walter Reed Hospital Christmas time. We got new hats, gloves, and then we put a box in the community center with a sign, because there's a lot of classes that go on. There's 2 types of yoga class, there's a dance class, and we ask these people, and we have a box there, and you'll be surprised all the hats and the scarves and the gloves, and then we sent them to the Walter Reed Hospital. We tell them we were going to send this stuff. And this is what we do. If we know, like, one of our families has a problem, we take care of that, and we do this on the quiet,
And that club has dwindling membership now?
Yeah, because you see, like, I have a daughter. She's married, but she doesn't live around here. She lives up in East Fishkill, up in Stormville. And most of us, we have daughters here that don't live here. And the new people, we try to get some new people in, and they're too busy doing this and the other.
And that changes the character of the town, do you think?
Yes. You figure, where are these people? But, then we talk to, my son belongs to the volunteer fire department in the ambulance corps. He's been on it for 45, I don't know how many years he is. But anyway, they could see the difference in the fire departments. Now we have 4 fire departments here. And each one is drilled, and new people are coming in.
Are not coming in.
And the reason is, now one man was coming up from the train. It was 6:30, and my son was standing in front of the hook and ladder on Main Street. And the man came over and he said to my son, I really would like to join the fire department, but what do you have to do? And then he said to him, well, in the first place, you join, and then you go up to Valhalla to school, where, 1 night a week, and you learn, just about fighting fires and stuff, And but my son said, you're just getting off a train. You have to be up at Valhalla at 6 o'clock. He said, yeah, well, that's a problem, but I really would like to, but he can't.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening today. There's too many people that are working late.
Yeah.
Then they have families. Years ago, like when my son joined the fire department, the old-timers that were still there, as the young ones came in, they were there almost every night. So if you stopped in the firehouse, you could sit and talk to these men, and they used to tell you about the fires they fought, or they would give you a lot of ideas and hints and what to do. They were almost training you by talking. That doesn't happen today, because most of them that belong now, who are married, they don't come hang out there at night. They're home. They're helping. See, years ago, the men didn't do what the men do today. They gave the baby a bath, and they read them a story. They put him to bed. They help the wife because she's working.
You've seen all the changes.
I've seen all that changes, and there's a big difference today, because that not only changed family life, it also changed the social life in town.
Right.
Because all the clubs are feeling the same thing. I don't care what club it is.
Now, what are the other clubs that you are?
Well, there's a Hastings Southside Social Club.
Yes.
That was formed years and years and years, 1939. And it was just a bunch of guys. They paid a quarter. And then they had it put down, continue. And there was at one time, I think, over 200 or 300 members. And a lot of these boys went to the war and didn't come back. A lot of them. But you see, now it's even dwindled. Even there's some that belong, and my son says, yeah, he belongs. But he said, there's members, they never come, but they paid their dues, and the dues are expensive, because that's a big building. They have to, there's insurance, and there's a lot of fixtures, and, to do and whatnot. And then it was very active. They had a bowling team, they had shuffleboard teams, and they almost every other weekend there was something going on, a dinner dance, Italian night, there was a Irish night, there was a dinner, and New Year's Eve they had a big, and always a live band at that time, and that was where we always said village, that was our country club. You went to that place on a Friday night, you couldn't get, that place was packed. They had tables, they had a bar, and a lot of people got married and had a nice reception upstairs. They decorated it nice, and you thought you were in a very high-class place, and it was. But as I said, things have changed. There's members that pay never come. They wanted to hold a trip to go to Foxwoods or, for a day out. They couldn't get 50 people to sign up to go on a bus.
Really?
So you can see all the changes.
Yeah.
And you can see the changes in the village. You see people, I was against the farmer's market. Not that I'm against fresh vegetables.
Of course.
But they thought, it'll bring people in, because I think we were one of the first that had this around, because Dobbsbury, Irvington didn't have this. And they said it will bring people in, and they will shop in Hastings. But they never did. They went to the farmer's market, and they got in their car, and they went back to Irvington, Dobbsbury, North Yonkers, and that was it.
Yeah. And all those towns have farmers markets.
Yeah, but I still say, here you had stores in Hastings that sold vegetables. And I'm just against that, because I think now they even have liquor. And I figured, I'm surprised, do they have a license to sell liquor?
Oh, they have wine, yeah.
Well, you still need a license for that.
Yeah, that's true.
And plants, I think it's great, because when I go up to my daughter's, up there's all the farms. In fact, one of the farmers up there comes down here. We used to go to his farm up there. And there's one that when you get off the Taconic, you go to 52, you come down. He rents that place, but he has a farm elsewhere, and he brings it there, and and the corn is out of this world. As my daughter says, that's my garden, because when she comes home from work, she stops there and picks up fresh vegetables. And I saw when I was up there this past weekend, they were mowing the lawn, that place where they're going to come. I said to my daughter, I guess your farm will be ready pretty soon, because I said, yeah, he'll be putting up, because now he'll bring out the lettuce, the tomatoes, and, all the stuff out. But the corn is out of this world.
Is it great?
Yeah. You could almost eat the cob.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should try to, I've been here for a long time, we should try to wrap up for today. Is there anything else you want to talk about in Hastings?
You said Sue had...
Well, Sue, I think... Sue specifically was trying to get information about Beatrice Gorman, but I guess I'm
working with Muriel on that.
Yeah.
I'm going through a lot of pictures. I'm giving her things that we did here, because we were very, very active right now. When we had a lot of girls, we had fashion shows, and that's...
Oh, at the VFW? You had fashion shows?
Yeah, the beaches put it up. We had, and of course, we go, till this day, the VFW and the auxiliary, we go up to Montrose every September, and we hold a barbecue, and it's for the wheelchair pay. We always dealt with the wheelchair people, and we bring up, like I had a friend of mine, she made lap robes. She used to knit them up for me and give them to me. We bring them, because they're in wheelchairs. Now these other big robes are too, the knitted ones, the big ones, they're too big for the wheelchair. Because they're getting to these are lap ones. And then I used to tell everybody, anybody I knew was going on vacation, those little bottles of shampoo and stuff. I said, bring them home to me, and we used to collect them. And everybody, I would find them at my doorstep, like home. Somebody would just drop a bag with some, and then we would gather all that, and we would bring that up to the men and up at Montrose, because I didn't know until we got talking to one of the men that that was a supervisor, that if these veterans needed toothpaste or something, they had to buy it from the store.
Oh.
There's no tax in there, because we did a lot of shopping. I got some beautiful gold jewelry there for almost for nothing. Good set. And I thought, what do you mean? They're patients here. They had to buy it, so that's why we were collecting all this. And almost every day there is some body volunteer. Not only most all the auxiliaries. There's not that many auxiliaries left.
Yeah.
Now in Hastings and Dobbs Ferry only had American Legion, but a lot of the men from Dobbs Ferry joined the V. See, to be in the VFW, you had to be a veteran of foreign wars. The American Legion is that you were in the service, regardless where you were in the. So, and then Ardsley, they had a VFW, but that disbanded because it wasn't enough. And a lot of the men joined our post, which made it good because, when you look at our VFW, most of the men, even the ones that came from Ardsley or Dobbs Ferry, we had some from Yonkers that joined, they're in their 80s. And who's got a hip replacement? Who has a heart condition?
But the young men from Iraq and Afghanistan, they're not joining. Why do you think they're not joining?
I don't know, because when I met Convoy, when he was here, he was deployed. He was going to be deployed again. He was home, and he lives over, I don't know if it's Mount Hope Boulevard, but I forgot where he lives. And they introduced Aunt Schnibby and I to him, and I said, oh, wow, now we're going to get a new, woman. Oh, my wife, no, she has 2 kids, and she can't do it. They're young.
Yeah.
And I figured, oh, well, and now there's 2 more. I think they're from Yonkers, but they're very active. They come to all the meetings.
Oh, good.
But this is it. Now we have one fella that he grew up with, my son. He was in Vietnam, and he came back with an injured hand when he can't use too much. And he drives the cab for the Hastings. Now, he's a Vietnam vet, and he joined the post. He went to a few meetings. He even made him a marshal of the parade one time. He pays his dues, but he doesn't go to the meetings, you see. And this is what happens.
Yeah.
They think because you pay, but you need bodies,
right. You need community.
Yeah. You need the money, but you also need bodies. You can't have the same people to rate, like now, like the Mothers Club. There's 16 of us, really. Now.
And how many were there?
We used to have meetings with 50 people the past few years. Every year it dwindled because who passed away, who moved, and nobody came in.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. The same thing with the auxiliary. There's Aunt Schnibby, there's me, there's Jean Schnibby and Gail Hoffman. They're young. They're in their 60s. But they're members, but they never come to a meeting. They don't even come to a parade, come into the parade. And then there's Seal Slave, and now she's in a nursing home. We had another woman, she just passed away. She was up there, and she was a good worker. And she was up at Arizona, and she just passed away. But we have one that she's in Florida, another one is up the country.
That's just dissolving.
So in Hastings, there's Aunt Schnibby, me, Patty, and I say Polly Sobrowski. Now, those are 4 of us that if somebody passes away, we go and do a service. When one of the men passes away, we go with them because they do a service, and the president of the auxiliary, takes part in that. But that's what's left.
It's a shame.
It's a shame.
Yeah. Well, the other things that we're talking about, the Historical Society is putting together an exhibit of Hastings and the wars, and the activities of the town during the war, and look at some of the soldiers who have given material to donate and such. So, since you were there, you've lived through all these wars in Hastings. So there's
for FDR, I remember FDR all the way.
right. So it's sort of the section of what was going on in Hastings and how Hastings contributed to the war, of the Red Cross and various other activities, the working at the plants making munitions, and then we're even doing a piece on the Home Guard during the First World War, and
that was down there. Was the homes down on Warburton Avenue.
yeah. So that, I think, anything that you remember. I know you were an air raid warden during World War II and patrolled for blackout shades, right? You're making sure people kept their shades down.
Yeah.
And then what if the air raid siren went off? What did you do? What was your mission then?
Well, we would just say that, everybody either wanted, if they were afraid, they came out, they would, some people would leave the light on and run out of the house.
Yeah, right.
That's what we...
And you needed the lights off because planes could come and bomb.
Yeah. They'd see a light, they'd forget, and they
right.
would, so, this, but you had to, even when you met somebody on the street during the daytime, you think, don't forget.
Turn off your lights.
Always do that, because...
Now, when people came out of their house, what did you tell them to do?
Well, we told them just to hide, to get out if there's going to be a bomb. But they had places to go,
Where would they go?
Either go down to their basement. Because most of them, there was all basements.
Yeah.
Right. That was the best place.
Now, did that make you nervous, being a young woman, being out?
No, see, when you're young, nothing bothers you that much. You know what I mean? You think you're doing a job, and that comes first. And anything you do,
Yeah.
You don't think of yourself, you have to think of others, and, what's right and what's wrong.
And now, how did you get to be an air raid warden?
I think I was asked if I want I think my father did it first. And then they said, how about your daughter? You could be partners, because that's what they try to do,
Groupings,
Grouping. And so we did it, and... Remember, I grew up in this village was strictly Republican when I grew up.
No kidding.
Strictly, if you weren't a Republican, if you were applying for a job, they always looked to see how you voted.
No kidding. Well, that's not right.
No, but that's the way it was. You got a job.
Even with the huge immigrant population on the factories and...
Father always told the daughter.
Now that's a big change, because the town is completely Democratic. Now, what caused that change, do you think?
It changed, I'd say, in the late 60s when...
No, the Cultural Revolution.
Because we had two parties. We had Democrat here and Republicans. And the Republicans always dominated.
Even in the manor.
That manor was strictly
Republican.
I can remember, what's her name now? Oh, she passed away. She was the only registered Democrat in the manor on the whole sheet. The sheets that come out, everybody that voted. She was the only Democrat up there. I can't think of her name. It'll come to me one night. I'll be doing dishes and it'll come to my mind. But she couldn't get over that, that I was the only Democrat. Her husband was Republican, but she was a Democrat. And that's how she voted, Democrat.
And what year are you talking about, do you think? What years?
Oh, I'm going back I'd say from the late, 49 up until around the 60s when we started. Then the Democrats, with Julie Chumka and all that group were there. And even when Sue ran for trustee, he was strictly Republican at that time. Then the Democrats were starting. The regular Democrats won. There were great guys that ran. You voted, so like with McAndrews. He was a great guy. I liked him.
Judge McAndrews, you're talking about? Mm-hmm.
No, he first ran as a trustee. He was a Democrat, but I voted for him because I didn't vote. The way I always voted, and I do to this day, I don't do strictly party. I do person.
Person on policy, right?
Yeah. And that's how I voted. But then when they started to come, the group that started coming in with the Democrats, they called them. They're not real Democrats.
They're not real. What were they?
Oh, they all had all kinds of names that I don't want to even say. But anyway, they started, and they ran, So one Democrat got in, and then finally they started, like even till today, this town
Is Democratic.
is Democratic. Now this whole Riverview Manor, right, section 23. There's very few. But let's see, there's 88, I have the list, 88 Republicans.
Are you on the Board of Elections also?
I was on the Board of Elections, but after I got sick, I didn't go into, I don't work. Past 2 years I didn't work. I'm still a district leader, but I used to go to the village election. I used to more or less be in charge of it, Sue made me in charge of it. But I as a district leader, I get the list. And I got the list I got just a couple of weeks ago. 88 people in the whole Riverview Manor, 23, 88. Now there's more than
88 what? I didn't hear you.
88,
Republicans?
can you imagine?
I know one of them. I'm married to one.
But the rest, now you don't know if they're independent, conservative, or I'm not saying the rest are Democrats because, they could be independent. Maybe some don't even vote because I know a couple of people that he votes and she doesn't. So and I can't understand. That's one thing. I don't care if you're independent. I'm a Republican, but as I say, I vote. I'm not a strict
You vote for the person. Right.
But anyway, I don't care if you're conservative, independent, Democrat. I think you have the right to vote. You should vote.
We have pretty good turnout in Hastings for voting.
For certain office. Now, when the village and there's no opposition, it's very poor.
Yeah, I mean there was no mayor.
Sometimes if the same ones that are in office are going to, I think it's a waste of money to open up a voting place. Why can't we go to a village meeting, board meeting? Everybody, if anybody's again, you notify anybody who's interested. If you want to write in, or you say, well, I want this one to run. Then I get but when you just got to go there and push the levers down for the same people, I think that's ridiculous. A waste of the money. Taxpayers.
Yeah. So how do you think it changed? What caused the changeover? How do you perceive that?
Because as the village changed, this is why it changed the village. The people that come in, they have a different lifestyle when they come here.
From the city, you think?
Yeah, because the people that came from Oklahoma, grew up there, they're used to more stuff like we grew up here in, because you talk to somebody, I came from a little town in Oklahoma or from outside of Denver. They didn't come from the big city. But when they said that's why, I have a neighbor here, moved here. He's been here about a year and a half, and he really fixed up the place nice. And I met him. I didn't even know that they had sold the house. And he was on the aqueduct with 2 little kids. And I was coming home, and I come to the end. He turned and says, "Oh, hello there." And he introduced himself. He said, "I just bought that house." I said, "Oh, really? I'm so glad, that." And I saw 2 little kids. I said, "Isn't that great?" And he said, "Oh, and I love it, the real estate, man." I said, "Yes, because, you got a playground here, you got a playground over that way, and you got the school." I said, "You walk down the hill, you're in the villages." He said, "Yeah," he was telling me the real estate. He said, "The mayor," that was when Canale lived over here. He said, the mayor lives here, and over here where there used to be a trustee, and this, and he was so happy, and then his mother was here with the kids one day, and she said to me, "I'm so happy," because they came from the Bronx. Even though they had a house there with a little garden, little lawn. She said, "I'm so glad my son moved up here in the country."
The country.
This is the
That's
country of the Bronx,
So you
right?
think it's the town changed because of the influx of people from the city, and they brought a different sense of value,
Yes,
just a more liberal value. from
very,
the city.
very. Some of them are too liberal,
Yeah.
you know. Now I don't remember. I happened to turn on WHOV one time when Lee was mayor, and this person was speaking, and I didn't know what she was talking about, but she said, "Well, if the seniors don't like it, they could move." Well, I thought Lee was going to get up out of that chair and hit that woman. He said, "Wait a minute there, wait a minute. How dare you say that? Do you know these seniors that you're saying that should move out? They're the ones who built this village. They're the ones, some of these seniors, that it's 3 generations. They're the ones who made Hastings what Hastings is today before you moved into it."
Yeah.
Because they're here, they said, "I'm here 5 years." Well, what does that
What do
mean?
you do?
You know, I'm here 5 years. And right away they want to get on every committee and they want to tell you how to run the village.
Yeah.
But I thought, so when I met Lee walk at the door, I said, "Oh my God, I thought you were going to hit her." He said, "I felt like it." He said, "I think the nerve of her to say such a thing. I wasn't brought up in this town. I came from Yonkers. But to have her say this, and I know Hastings is his wife and my daughter grew up together. I know Susan, such a young girl. And but that attitude, they're in the city, they don't care. Yeah. Hooray for me and the hell with everybody. It's either my way or no way, and I don't think that's right.
No, it's not.
You know.
Great. So it was in the 60s you noticed the big...
It started in the 60s, and not too much in the... It started, and then I don't have to laugh because the good diehard Democrats, there's only a few of those diehards left here in town. And they even say, "Oh, well, when this group come in." Now, this other second group, they're more liberal than we had ever had before. A lot of that movement today.
And you said 68. Do you think it was the reaction to the war?
Yeah.
And what was the reaction in town to the war in that war in 68?
Well, you know, I don't think any war is worth it, but anyway, I figured, well, they're there and at least support them, you know.
Sure.
You know, and that's what I did because
because it's your brothers, your...
Yeah, you know, my neighbors'
friends.
kids were there, and the kids that I went to school with, their kids are in it, you know. And I could, but people, you know, they had demonstrations, and my son hates Joan Fonda.
Oh, Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
He hates
right.
her.
Well,
He wouldn't go see a movie when she comes on the news. He changes the style. He can't stand the sight of her.
Yeah.
Well, that's how she did with Debby. He said she's a turncoat, and I hate her.
that
her.
was
You know, and he said, I almost hate Ted Turner for marrying her. You know.
Yeah. Now, was he in the war?
My son, no.
Was he drafted? No, he
No,
wasn't.
I wanted to go when he had flat feet. Could you imagine they refused him? He wanted to, he was ready to go to college. And I was sitting at this table. I was sitting in that chair, and he comes standing in the doorway because we were supposed to go up to the Alfred University. That's where he was going to go. And he stood in the door, and I said, "What's the matter, Nelson?" He said, "I have something to tell you." And I said, "What?" He says, "You know, we have that date to go to Alfred. Well, I don't want to go. I changed my mind. I don't want to go to college." And I said, "Why not?" I was thinking maybe I'd join the Army or the Navy and then go to school there. Because a couple other boys did the same, and they got in. But when he went down for his... Now, what was I going to say? I don't want you to go. I wasn't happy about that, you know. Because you never know when some skirmish was going to come up, you know.
So during the Second World War, which you lived through, and you were working at the Anaconda plant, and you were an air raid warden and VFW, so you were participating in helping. And then during the Vietnam War, and maybe even the Korean War, I guess there must have been activities. But the town wasn't solidly behind in helping the way it did during World War II.
No. But our VFW group, we did, the Beach Scorman did, we used to make packages.
During Vietnam?
And Korean.
And the Korean War.
And we had make up packages, and we used to mail them to servicemen. And we have this Steve Ravinsky. He worked for Mott's. He was a salesman for months.
Sure.
And he was a local man. And I got a hold of him one day. I said, Steve, we used to call him Terror, because he was a holy terror as a kid. and people say, how come you call him Terror? Well, it's a long story. But anyway, I said, Terror, I said, the Beaches Gorman Auxiliary is making packages, we sending to the veterans overseas. Couldn't we get something from Mott's? He said, sure. What do you want? I said, well, whatever you want to give us. Well, the next day there was 3 big boxes of stuff, because I wasn't home, and he left it. It was delivered. There was applesauce, all kinds of, any product that they made, it was able to be shipped, packed. Oh my God. And so we we took the boxes, and my son helped bring them down to the post, and we called the girls together, and I'm telling we made, and he said, anytime you're ready, whenever you make another package, call us. So I would give him a call on the phone, and they'd say, hey Steve, okay. There it was, right there, we did send packages to...
Now, how about now with the Afghanistan,
well, now...
Iraq, and I guess Iraq's winding down, but is the village activity is different than during these prior wars.
And you know what, and there's one thing that a lot of the people in the village, and my son, and me, and a lot of us in the post, are against the trees that are in front of the VFW.
The trees, all right.
It blocks that building, which is a historical building, the VFW, and the monument that we have with the Hastings fellows' names on it.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that it blocked. Okay.
And these trees, and they have the circle down here with benches to sit. That's fine.
That's beautiful.
On the other side, it's empty. Nothing. You can see clear up to Whitman Street. Here you can't see the building and you can't see the monument. On Memorial Day, when we have that service after the parade, we have a beautiful service that we do, that we dedicate to these lost souls. To all of them. You can't see it. People walk away because they can't. They can hear it, but they can't see it. Those trees never should have been there in the first place. What is a weeping willow doing on that?
It's a beautiful tree.
I know it is. But why didn't they put those trees on the... Now, people don't sit in those benches because the birds are in the trees doing their little duties.
Oh.
And they said, you go sit down there, it's on the benches. I mean,
yeah.
I don't mind that Christmas tree. But why don't they put every... Now where they used to have a section there where they used to sit, there was a nice tree there. And now they have bushes and things growing wide. They should keep that wide open. So people, when you say VFW, you have to give them directions how to go. And in order to see the building, they can't even see it.
So you think that the fact that the building is set back and not so visible
or the monument.
It's impacted the way the town is helping or not helping the efforts.
No, and a lot of people are against it. They say, well, all those trees, you can't see, you can't see the trees for the forest.
But there's not, you perceived a lot of community spirit during World War II, but not since any of these war efforts. And why do you think that is?
Because of the people that moved in. They don't care. Because they don't even come to the parade. They don't come. Do you know, this goes back, I'd say, maybe 5 years ago, maybe. I was standing at, before Memorial Day. We sell poppies, And I was in front of the A&P, and a young man, about 30, came by with a little, I guess it was his daughter. She was about 3. And she saw me with the poppies, and she said, Dad, what is that, Daddy? And I said, it's a poppy. And he said, well, what are they for? I said, these are poppies that the disabled vets make. And we're collecting money for the disabled. Oh, I said, you never heard of it? No, I don't know. I said, did you ever hear of the poppies that grow in the field? No, you never heard of it. Now he's 30 and he has a little girl, so I gave her a poppy, and then he said, I said, you put it in the can with how much you want, so he put some change in. But I thought to myself, what school did he go to? I felt like saying, where did you originally come from? Because I know you're not a Hastings kid, because people at Hastings, the originals knew we were selling poppies all the time, and they knew when they saw you coming. There's someone even one time said, "You selling poppies?" I said, "I don't carry it with me every place I go, But like the fire department, they wear one every Memorial Day.
Yes,
and the South Side wears them.
That's right.
And because they feel that, and everybody puts in $1. I get $5 bill. When we open those cans to count the money, there's $10 bills and $5 bills. Years ago, when we first started doing this back, in the 40s and the 50s, people put in quarters or something, like 2 quarters or something.
Right.
When nickels, kids would put in a nickel or a dime. Kids used to buy them because they learned from school about the poppy. In Flanders Field, the poppies grow,
Yeah, maybe in school, they're not
That's
doing
it. Then the schools now not even teaching history.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a shame.
it is. It is a shame because now, a few years back, one is a senior in school. Got he wanted to know why. He wanted to know more about World War II. And he brought it up at class, and so the school decided to hold a service before Memorial Day. And they had us up there out on the side, and we did a service. And a couple of the men spoke that were overseas, talked about World War II. The kids were fascinated. They never heard of such.
I'll bet, yeah.
So, and then they thanked us for coming, And then next year, we went 2 years. And the third year, they decided that all of a sudden the school got interested. Because Nancy Gagliardi, the secretary in the office there, we're very good friends, and her father was a World War II vet. So they started something in the lounge. Anybody in the kids' families, uncles, brothers, grandparents that were in the war, if they had any souvenirs to bring them. And they had a whole, you'd be surprised the stuff that came in and was on display. And then they had a rope going from all around. And on the rope had the name of the man that was in the service and the kid's name underneath. And she would say it was my father, my uncle, or whatever it was. And you'll be surprised. We were amazed, the vets who went up there, how many of these kids had parents. And they still did. They knew something about the war because they saw who brought home this and who brought home this, or who had a bullet, and he brought some of them.
Yeah.
But I said, well, it's about time to school, and we just said that we discussed it among ourselves. It's about time to school because they don't teach anything.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
Yeah.
I
know. I spent a lot of time explaining World War II to my son. And he went to Hastings, yeah. Well, may I call you Eleanor?
Certainly.
Well, thank you, Eleanor.
Yeah, anytime.
And anything you want to add before we wrap this up today?
Because I was interviewed years ago.
Yeah.
So they have my history there.
Yeah, they're looking. It's all been sent out for transcription. So I wasn't able to listen to it before I met with you. So I'm sorry if I've been repetitive.
No, that's okay. No, I understand. Like I was born, you don't have to tell this now, you can shut this
No.
I was born in Dobbs Ferry Hospital in 1920. But we lived on the Zinser estate. My father was a maintenance man, and Mr. Albo Ryle was the chauffeur, and so his 2 boys grew up with my brother, my sister, and I.
But so there was a house. I know the big house. I remember the big house.
The big house, yeah. That was where the Zinser family lived.
Yeah.
Now it's still there. One of the old houses are right there on Zinser Way. Right
okay.
Right there, and the other house was taken down. We lived there. So when I was born, Mrs. Zinser came with my father and brought me my first layette. Dressed me and brought me home.
Nice.
So we grew up there, and of course, Mr. Zinser was the Santa Claus of Hastings.
No kidding.
The kids wrote letters and left them in the post office, and then Mr. Zinser used to get them. Had the secretary go, who wanted a truck, who wanted this and that, little baby carriages, and then my father, Mr. Zinser, and Mr. Ryle used to go to the city and pick up the toys, and those kids used to get it for Christmas.
How interesting. Now, the Zinser family donated part of their property there to create the Victory Gardens, so people could grow their own vegetables.
Yep.
And Zinser had a munitions plant or something down on the waterfront.
They made dyes.
Dyes, okay.
Down at the end of...
And he did something for the war effort at one of those.
Yes, I can't remember just what it was.
But sort of sketchy.
Because I don't know, someone said that years ago they thought they had made gas for World War I.
Mustard gas, yeah.
But it was mostly dye that they made for mine up, because even the rats came up on the street in color. You knew what color dye they were making that day. Oh, look, they're red today or they're blue today.
Wow.
Well, we had a neighbor that he worked there. You could see by his hands. Sometimes the dye didn't come out of their hands when he'd say, oh, but they're blue today. But they used to come up, from the river up to Warburton Avenue, the lower part of Warburton Avenue. And they were rats.
Yeah, big.
See, there was and the Pioneer Boat Club was near there. Mm-hmm. Because we had two boat clubs, the Pioneer Boat Club, and then down we had the Bustolas there.
The one by Riverview.
Yeah.
I forget what that's.
Harvester. We're next to Harvester.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the boat club down there. Right. That's been there for years and years and years.
Yeah.
They used to call it the Yacht Club, because that's what, years and years and years ago, that's what it was, yachts that were there. No little canoes. But now they have boats. They have canoes and motorboats. A lot of kayak. See now, I'm so glad, like the Canal Cove, you see a lot of kayakers. You didn't see that too much before.
It looks fun, doesn't it?
Yeah. When I graduated, when he retired from the community center, Mr. Gomez, that was his gift, a kayak and a life jacket we put in the seat.
Oh, nice.
Because he likes kayaking. He lives over in New Rochelle, so he goes out to the island there.
Yeah.
And he was so surprised when he saw that. Oh my God, And I said, well, you're kayaking.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, if you think of anything else you want to talk about,
no.
And what I'll do is I will type up this. Sort of, I'm not sure if I'll type it verbatim or as an outline, because I think they're developing some kind of plan that the computer can type everything. But I'll do an outline, and then Sue or someone at the Historical Society will make a disc that you can have, and you can listen to it.
Okay.
And, we can add to it if you want to think of something else, or if Sue or somebody listens to this and said, gee, Debbie, you didn't ask about blah, 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 go back.
Well, I'll say Sue Sunday. We're going to be going to a party to Julie Chunka's surprise birthday party.
Surprise!
Surprise!
Well, it's such a pleasure to meet me. Turn this off.